the water policy challenges we're facing today would be the exact same challenges if the Barnet Shale didn't exist.
Part of the plan is to come up with an idea or a framework for where we're going to get that water.
And this is a world-class field that was, as we've noted, will go on for the next 20 to 30, 40 years.
We want the Barnet Shale production. It's a great economic tool, great economic driver for the suburban areas surrounding Tarrant County. But at the same time, it's got a lot of downside.
Change in perception, if we can get that, then we'll all be able to operate a lot more effectively in the basin, and I hope that without undue regulation.
Well, we believe that the communication process is a very important process, especially when you are dealing with something like this.
Being proactive is a much more efficient and less expensive way of educating the public, because otherwise they get educated through litigation.
Welcome to World Energy Television's Leadership Series. I'm Bill Watts. Everyone knows that oil and water don't mix, but gas and water, well, that's a different story. One of the pleasant surprises in Texas recently has been the growth of natural gas production, mostly because of new technology that makes many shale deposits economically viable. We've all heard of the Barnet Shale in North Texas. It's the largest natural gas play in the country right now. And there are other areas we should know about, the Woodford Shale and the Fayetteville Shale, to name just two. But this gas production is not just ballooning revenues for the industry and the people of Texas. It's also inflating worries among citizens that the industry's new thirst for water to drill and produce wells will reduce the available water for homes and farms and businesses. So today on World Energy Television, we switch our focus from oil to water and the controversy surrounding its use in developing these gas resources. Please join us as we examine the myths and the reality of these new resource plays. To do that, and with us in the studio, are Bill Stevens, the Executive Vice President of the Texas Alliance of Energy Producers; Lindsay Dingmore, Manager of Governmental Relations for XTO Energy, a major producer in the region; Pete Vermillion, an energy attorney and partner in the firm of Kelly, Hart & Hallman; and Mark Whitley, Senior Vice President of Range Resources, another producer in the Barnet Shale. Also joining us from remote locations are Dr. Robert Mace, the Director of Groundwater Resources for the Texas Water Development Board; State Representative Phil King of Weatherford, who represents constituents in Wise and Parker counties, where much of the gas production is occurring; also George Mitchell, the former CEO of Mitchell Energy and Development, a company that pioneered gas production in the Barnet Shale; and Bill Thornton, president of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce, a community much affected by the drilling and production of the Barnet Shale. Gentlemen, thanks for participating in our program. Let's start by looking at your own perspectives and perhaps the perspectives of your companies, your communities on this water issue, and see how it impacts each of us. Bill Stevens, how about you first?
Well, Bill, thank you. As the Executive Vice President of the Alliance with 3,000 plus members, obviously I'm going to have an industry perspective. I thought about two words when I was trying to look for perspective. One was balance and one was management. And balance in the activities, industry, individuals, the general populace, and management. I thought about looking at management of our water, management of our resources, and allocation and conservation and stewardship. And we at the Alliance are happy to have this opportunity to talk about those types of words, balance and management.
Pete, tell me, what do you think the biggest issue is facing the industry today in terms of guaranteeing a supply of water?
Well, I don't think it's going to be per se a legal issue or the legal right to use water or to access water. I think it's going to be more of as time goes on, a progression of increased regulation of water use. It's going to be more of an issue of dealing with the public perception of the use of water and navigating those new and increased regulations on use of water.
Do you think that's the case, Lindsay?
Oh, I think public perception is a huge part of it. You know, dating all the way back to the early settlement days of Texas, there's an old saying that says, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. And I'm a teetotaling Baptist, so I don't know anything about whiskey, but I've seen a lot of water fights, and I think we're going to continue to see some water fights over time. And public perception, I think the industry has a real opportunity here, and maybe crossroads is a cliche, but I think we're at a crossroads, and we've got an opportunity to step forward and educate our partners in the community about not only the volumes of water we use, but how we use it, how we dispose of it, those type of things. And I think by educating the public and the way that they communicate with our elected policymakers, I think we've got a real opportunity.
So let's turn to Phil King, state representative from Weatherford, who represents a lot of people in Wise and Parker counties. Phil, what's your take on it? What's your constituents' take on this issue?
Well, you know, first I want to say that we want the Barnett Shale production. It's great. It's a great economic driver for us. It's as a public policy, we need that gas production. We like all the good things that come out of the Barnett Shale in Parker and Wise County. But I can tell you from the perspective of a local state representative who represents the Barnett Shale entirely, there's a lot of headaches with it too. You know, great example, go back to this time last year. Our phones were ringing off the wall here at the Capitol and at the district office from complaints from people for their water costs at their business and residence. You know, the unique thing about the Barnett Shale is that this is the first time there's been a gas play this large in a developed or rapidly developing area such as Parker and Wise County.
As we said earlier, Fort Worth is a community much affected by the drilling in the Barnett Shale, and we have with us Bill Thornton, who is the president of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Thornton, what are the people of Fort Worth thinking about this?
Well, Bill, we're very proud of the unique quality of life that we enjoy here in Fort Worth. So anytime an issue or a set of issues that could potentially adversely impact that quality of life occur or materialize, needless to say that we're going to take a long, hard, close look at it. I'm very pleased to report, though, that the relationship that the Fort Worth community as a whole has developed with the energy companies that are currently drilling here in the region is a very positive relationship, and I think we're very pleased with, obviously, the economic impact and the approach that's being taken by the gas drillers here in our community.
Mr. Mitchell, you're looked to as the person who led the discovery of the Barnett Shale. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Well, I think it's very important from us as a company. Well, the Barnett is probably the most important discovery we made probably out of a couple of hundred discoveries I made on new fault blocks or new deepening or do this or that on wells I've drilled. Because I've been involved in drilling more than 10,000 wells in this country. So I've had experience in many different ways. But I think that there's still independents like me that will still try to do things. And many major companies now have to look further and harder because of what's happening.
We also want to talk about just how water is used to develop these resource plays, and we think one of the key people, the person with maybe the most knowledge of anybody sitting around this table, is right here, Mark Whitley, who's been involved with this for so long.
Thanks, Bill. I would say that water is the key to these new resource plays because it has turned out to be the economically viable fracturing fluid that we can use. If you look at gas fields in general, water's always been used to some extent for the fracturing process, which allows the gas to migrate to the well, which then becomes the gas that you use in your home or in the factory down the street from you. But the thing that's changed in the resource plays is now we don't have really any production without fracturing. But without really water fracturing technology that we have today, we wouldn't have the field the size of the Barnett that it is here in 2007. And if you look back 10 years ago, it's grown significantly, and the reason for that is because we've been able to apply this technology, water fracking, if you will, to a rock that would not give up as much gas if we used other techniques which have been tried in the past. So water is the key to making this resource play work, as well as I think will be applicable to others down the road.
Dr. Mace, did your study show where the water is coming from?
Well, up in the Fort Worth area, a lot of the water is coming from groundwater and then there's also water coming from surface water. And our study suggested that about 60% of the water is coming from groundwater aquifers, and the rest is coming from surface water. On the groundwater side of the equation, that groundwater is coming from an aquifer we know as the Trinity Aquifer.
If you're in Dallas County, 99% of your water is coming from the surface. If you're in a more rural county, it might be 85% is coming from underground in wells.
Well, what we found in our study is that about 7,200 acre-feet per year are being used currently. And acre-feet might be an alien concept or a different term than folks are used to. That represents, 1 acre-foot represents 326,000 gallons of water.
Is that significant?
For the total area, and when I say the total area, it's basically the area that's in the Barnet Shale play, which includes Dallas, Fort Worth. There's about 1.3 million acre-feet of water used. So when you compare 7,200 acre-feet of water to 1.3 million acre-feet of water, it doesn't appear to be a lot of water. It's less than 1% of the total usage.
That doesn't sound like much, but I guess maybe it creeps up when you get into the rural counties?
It could in localized areas, certainly could, but I think it creeps from the 1% to the 3%. I don't think it creeps more than that.
Okay, we're off to a good start with the first portion of our program, and we'll be back to you in just a moment. Welcome back to World Energy Television's look at the new resource plays. So what about the ownership of this water? It's a natural resource. There's a lot of legal issues around that, I think, Pete. Who owns the water, and can you be forced to give it up?
Generally, the surface owner will own the rights to the water. It's very common here in North Texas for the mineral rights to be severed from the surface estate. And so we have a lot of conflicts between surface owners and mineral interest owners. However, the mineral interest owner, the lessee or its lessee,